Good morning. Hi. This is R.N. Bhaskar from BKBB, which is an acronym for Bhaskar Key Business Baatein. This is a channel that brings you every week a policy analysis or an occasional business story or an occasional conversation. But at this time, right now, we have what we call news behind the news. We look at some news items and try to examine some more information that people don't talk about. And yes, before I begin, just a reminder, please click the subscribe button if you have not clicked it already. Click the like button. It helps us build our algorithms with YouTube. But most of all, please inform all your friends and associates about us. We want our audience to grow because we want people to know the news behind the news. And today I'm joined by my co-anchors. I've got Katya. Katya, welcome. I've got Isha. Isha, welcome to you as well. And I have Anurag. Ditto, nice to see you. And among all the four of us, we're going to discuss 4 news items. Let me talk about first the headlines. The headlines, as you can see on the screen, are the first one is, will India benefit from the UK-FTA? The second one is how SMEs are likely to be investigated and why the SMEs could face a difficult, turbulent time ahead. The third one is about the Human Development Index and how India's ranking has improved marginally. And the fourth one, an equally important story, how satellite rules are being modified and why. Before I begin my first story, let me also mention that I've deliberately not mentioned anything about the surgical attack that India made against Pakistan for 2 reasons. One is, in the fog of war, nothing is clear. And the second, while we have heard other new foreign newspapers talking about how many casualties took place on both sides, we have yet to hear from the Indian government. So it's not fair to talk about that war till we get the right numbers, especially the Indian government's point of view. So please remember, this is a war that can escalate. Every country that we know of, the major influences here, including China and the USA, have asked for de-escalation. But given the tempers on both sides of the border, anything is possible. And remember, both of them are nuclear powered states. The risks are high. The casualties could be higher. Anyway, let's go to the stories. My first story is basically on the Indo UK trade, which has been described as historic. I don't understand why they say it's historic. Firstly, you made a lot of noise about colonialism and even changed the IPC, the Indian Penal Code, and gave it a Hindi name and got new sections inside which are controversial and lead to more cases. So why were you so desperate to sign up with the UK? If it's anti-colonialism, be clear about anti-colonialism. Second, look at the numbers that the government has given out. Yes, trade will increase marginally from one number to another number, 26 billion more. Nothing much. Ignore that. Both UK and India suffer from a negative trade balance. So both of them would be averse towards importing into their countries, and yet India's gung-ho. But the list that's come out shows that UK has more benefits on entry into India. The duty on its whiskey has been reduced by significantly from 150% to 75%. Whiskey, okay. Then you have professionals in India which will get greater access, but numbers have not been given. Then you have bilateral trade, which is going to be increased, okay, fine, by 2040. But the worrisome part is automotive tariffs are set to go down from a high of 100% to 10%. Which means Indian automobile parts manufacturers could face competition. And then look at the other numbers. Cosmetic imports are being allowed. Aerospace, fine. Lamb, what about Indian lamb? Medical devices, salmon, what about Andhra Pradesh and its fishery industry? Electrical machinery, soft drinks, chocolate, and biscuits. Biscuits. So, I can see India opening its doors to the UK. I have not seen any information about what doors the UK is opening for India. And remember, when dealing with the UK, remember the Western helicopter story. They gave us a gift of Western helicopters, and we found a couple of days later that maintaining the helicopters cost us even more than buying new helicopters. India has rushed in for whatever reason it wants, but I am not gung-ho about this FTA. Anyway, that was my view. Let's see what the government comes up with. But now let's go to the second story, which is a very interesting story by Katya. Katya, could we have you?
So SME IPO, so we have the IPO bull run is pretty much over, sir. We saw how Aether Energy listed, it's not too great. So, but SME IPOs are facing another problem itself. In fact, in the last 4-5 months, a lot of regulatory action is being undertaken. The latest is one such SME company which went for an IPO, Synoptics, has been barred by SEBI. In fact, it has actually also pointed out the fund managers who have managed this IPO also, and this asked them to held with restraint. This come right after there is another company called Kalhridaan Trends was also barred. Also, again, financial irregularities. The first company was also siphoning funds. So a lot of these issues are coming up now that the bull run is over. So just also want to remind you, in March, SEBI also came up with a stricter framework for SME IPOs. Right now, they're pretty much being managed by the exchanges BSE and NSE as a part of their SME IPO listings, but they want them to see a lot more stringent ways to protect these investors from his SME IPOs before they want to do it. The SEBI chairman also said they don't want a few examples to ruin the whole SME IPO bull run also. But things are going to be a little more different from now that the bull run is over. Also, just want to remind you that most of the SME IPO investors are not, very few of them are in institutions. A lot of them are retail investors, so they need to be protected. When returns were when money was doubling in the last few years, that it was a good idea. But right now, SME IPOs are SME stocks are very illiquid. It's not easy to trade. If you want to sell, it's a little difficult. So it's going to be a problem going ahead. Let's see what happens. Back to you, sir.
Yes, you're right. And what SEBI recommended is right, that whenever there's a fraud, the merchant bankers should be held responsible, because the merchant bankers orchestrated the raising of funds. They have to make sure that the funds are used, the end use is monitored constantly. You are right, it's a good story, and it's a story that will have major repercussions in the stock markets. Thanks, Katya. We now go to the second story, the third story, and the third story is by Anurag about HDI. Anurag, could we have you?
Good morning. Today I bring you the Human Development Index report by United Nations Development Program, UNDP. Where does India stand among the 193 countries in the report and its growth trajectory? The 2025 HDI places India at the 130th position among 193 nations with a score of 0.685, climbing 3 spots from the previous report of 2022, as shown in the screen right now. This puts India in the medium development category, with the report noting a 53% improvement since 1990. When we look beyond the numbers, inequality continues to shape the development story. India's HDI drops to 0.475 when adjusted for inequality, reflecting how the top 10% of earners claim 57% of national income, while the bottom half of the population receive just 13%. On the health front, life expectancy has reached 72 years. The infant mortality rate now stands at 28 per 1,000 births, progress for sure, but still above the global average of 22. We see this pattern across India, with states like Kerala showing stronger outcomes than regions like Bihar. Education tells a similar story of progress with persistent challenges. Indians now spend an expected 13 years in school, though the actual average is 6.9 years. The quality of education remains a concern as only 47% of fifth grade students in rural areas can read second grade texts. The economic picture shows resilience with income per person rising to $9,047 from $6,951 in 2022. Moreover, India stands out globally for its AI skills workforce, creating opportunities in the digital economy. The AI market is projected to grow 17 billion by 2027, potentially transforming sectors from agriculture to healthcare. Gender gaps persist in development. Women in India register a lower HDI of 0.631 compared to men's 0.722, with workforce participation at just 27% despite recent policy changes and boost inclusion. Looking at neighbors, India matches Bangladesh in HDI in the 2025 report, but falls behind Sri Lanka's 0.7716 among BRICS nations. China leads with an HDI of 0.798 and per capita income of $19,351, highlighting the development distance India needs to cover. The divide between urban and rural India remarks stark. Cities house 70% of the tech industry, while rural areas, home to 65% of Indians, have access to only 35% of healthcare facilities. The digital divide tells the same story: 67% internet access in the urban areas versus 31% in the villages. The report identifies 230 million Indians facing multidimensional poverty, with over half concentrated in Bihar, Jharkhand, and Uttar Pradesh. With targeted interventions, experts believe 140 million people could move out of poverty by 2030. A reminder that behind these statistics are lives and futures that stand to change. What's your take on this, sir?
You're right, Anurag. The HD of India is terrible, and it's just increased from 133 ranking to 130, which in effect means 129 countries are ahead of India. This is not Viksit Bharat. And India has to improve its HDI in health, in education, in access to justice, and in income inequality. And but before I go to the fourth story, just a reminder: we will handle a few questions. We'll discuss a few questions and comments that viewers put in. Send in your views, send in your comments, and we'll try to look at them. We have the last story, which is equally important, and that's by Isha. Isha, good to have you.
Hello, good morning. The story I'm bringing you today is from The Hindu and it's titled Government Amends Satellite and Internet Service Rules. So, this week, the Department of Telecommunications issued further amendments to the Unified License and Global Mobile Personal Communications by Satellite authorizations as Elon Musk Starlink awaits clearance to operate in India. Furthermore, these amendments also came in light of the rising security concerns post the Pahalgam attack in Kashmir. The terms, as reflected in the circular by the Department of Telecommunications, are largely the same as the current requirements in place for telecom operators and home broadband providers. And these include enabling surveillance of users' web traffic. Additionally, a key requirement that might undermine Starlink's allure for some of its customers in India is that the satellite terminals sold abroad must be disabled on Indian soil, and Indian purchased terminals must be disabled in other countries to protect information. The intent behind mandating geofencing is to prevent cross-border signal spillover, especially in sensitive regions, and to ensure that satellite connectivity can be monitored, intercepted, and governed in India, says Mahavash Fatima, a public policy manager at Quantum Hub, a tech policy firm. Another unique requirement is that the terminals must eventually be manufactured in India within a 5-year span. So, as Starlink faces a prolonged delay in obtaining authorization to operate the satellite spectrums in India and start their services, these regulations act as a compliance burden, which then in turn affects both Airtel and Jio, two of India's major telecom providers, both of whom have partnerships with Starlink. These developments are really interesting. Lots to think about. So, do you think that these guidelines are enough to protect the privacy and security of people in our country?
Well, the government's woken up very late. Sometimes wars make you think. And the bureaucrats suddenly realize that you need a policy for satellites. China's already got a policy. While India has only one player, Starlink, tying up with two players in India, China has three players, with Starlink joint venture being one and two Chinese players. And what is more important is China already has 34 manufacturers of satellites in that country. India is way, way behind. India needs to wake up. But thanks. That's a very important news because it tells you how a communications department and a planning department work. Yes, some interesting questions. Some of them relate to the war. I'm not going to answer them. And the next question that's come in is why did the government go in for the UK-FTA? Ask the government. Europe did not agree to sign. US has not agreed to sign. Many countries have refused to sign, I suspect because of the bilateral investment treaty and the refusal to let foreign companies go to International Arbitration Council. I do not know whether the FTA with the UK allow that or does not allow that. Your guess is as good as mine, but I think UK is getting a good deal and India may have got nothing. It may have actually sold away some of its interests. Okay, let's go to the next question, and the next question is about satellites. The person asks me whether we will be able to launch satellites in time. Without regulation, you can't launch. So obviously, there's going to be some delay. Obviously, China will put up its satellites faster. Russia will use that technology. They will not use Starlink. And so let's see what happens. Very interesting developments. And India's delay will cost it dearly. There's a third question, which is on the HDI. Why is India's HDI still so poor? Because India talks about everything else except human development. Look at Uttar Pradesh, which has got the largest grants in the government. It and Jharkhand account for 50% of the poverty, 50% terrible education. And you try to say that Uttar Pradesh is a glorious state, a wonderful state. I mean, have a heart. Tell the truth. That Uttar Pradesh and Jharkhand need to be taken away from the politicians and administered so that at least the people's lives become better. But unfortunately, we have to live with that. And that brings me to the end of today's news. And thank you very much for being with us. These are extremely turbulent times, unpredictable, very expensive. Wars are always very expensive. And with an absence of even industrial policy and communication policies, it'll get even more troublesome. But do tune in. Just a reminder, click the subscribe button. Do click the like button. It helps us. And tell your friends about us. See you tomorrow. Have a great day ahead. Enjoy yourself.